I've walked out on faith several times in my life, especially within the last 3 years. I literally spent 4 years of my life in college pursuing a degree and thinking I would work in Big Four consulting and work my way up the corporate ladder at one point. And then I got the job that I worked so hard for at one point in my life, but I realized I didn't really like it and I didn't actually want to be there anymore. So I left. I've also pursued every dream and every passion and everything that I have ever wanted to do up until this point. I've traveled solo, I've gone many places solo, and I've also had the courage to be obedient to God and create an online platform when it absolutely terrified me when He initially told me to do it. I've done a lot of things that absolutely scared the life out of me, almost. And I'm going to tell you about some of the lessons I have learned, and my goal is to encourage you to be more courageous in your life. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the show. I'm your host Sensi, and on this podcast we talk about taking accountability for your life to become the best version of yourself. Today we are going to talk about courage. Okay, I think this is a good topic to end the year and going to the new year with, because in 2025 I want you to really approach the year with more courage. So there are three main benefits of being courageous in your life and taking bold actions that I want to talk about. But first, I want to talk about where you are right now, right? Just struggling to take the first step, to take the leap of faith, right? Now, in my experience, there were four main reasons as to why I was afraid to begin with. So I want to talk about these four, okay? The first is that maybe you worked very hard to get to where you are today, and so you are afraid to make the wrong decision again because you worked hard to get to where you are and you realize it's not what you want. So now, whatever it is you want to do, you feel afraid of taking that leap of faith, but because it's like you were wrong before. That's why you're here. So you don't want to be wrong again. That's how I felt with my first job. I was like, if I can spend all of this time pursuing something and then be so completely wrong about it, what if I'm wrong about the next thing? And you know what helped me? I said, what is the alternative? What is the alternative? If I was satisfied where I was, I wouldn't be thinking about taking the leap of faith in the first place. So the alternative to being afraid to make the wrong decision is not making any decision at all. It's actually making the decision to not make a decision, which is making the decision to remain in the same place that you are right now. And if that was working out for you, you would not be concerned about that thing that you cannot seem to get off your mind, right? So that's not actually a viable option. What I have realized is that you never start from ground zero the second time around, because the first wrong decision I made taught me so many things that I learned going into the second decision or the second season of my life, if you will, right? It's like every decision, every season of my life was a building block for the next one. So I have found that learning the lesson from the situations that you end up in is more beneficial than having a victim mentality and then making yourself believe that, I don't do anything right or everything I do is wrong and I should just stay where I am and just like that's not beneficial. That's not fruitful. That's not productive. That's not going to help you, right? It's way better to adopt a mindset of, what is the lesson that I learned from this and how can I apply this in my life going forward so I make better decisions? That is more beneficial for you than playing the victim and saying, oh, well, I made the wrong decision once, so I shouldn't do anything this time around, okay? That's not viable. If that was working out for you, you would not be so unfulfilled or so unsatisfied with where you are right now, okay? The second reason that could be holding you back is because where you are right now is all you know. So you have essentially been conditioned to believe that that's all that's possible for you. So one thing that has really helped me not have that mindset is something that isn't even related to a decision that I had to make, but it was a decision that was made for me. So I lived in St. Lucia up until I was 16, a few months before I turned 17, right? And back when I was in St. Lucia, I never thought I would ever leave St. Lucia, right? My entire life, what I planned for myself did not ever include leaving St. Lucia. I was still a teenager at that point, but when I was thinking about my life, I never included any aspect of the last decade of my life because I never thought I would leave, right? My mother made the decision for us to leave, but that was never a part of my plan. Now, because I have lived in two different countries for at least a decade each, what I have realized is that when you change your environment, that can literally shake up everything that you have known about your life. And the reason you likely believe that things are not possible for you, or you can only see one way out of a situation, or you can only see one option, is because of your environment and it's because of your conditioning. Because I've had that experience of living in two different countries, there's never a time where I feel like how I think or how I feel or how things are run in America is the only way that you can live your life, because I know what it's like to live in a completely different country where everything is different, right? So when people are like falling apart about America is this and America is that, to me, I'm just like, okay, well, I can just leave America because I know that a lot of these things are isolated to America, because when I lived in St. Lucia, I didn't have these problems. You see what I mean? So sometimes it's just a change of your environment, or you being in the same environment the entire time, that has conditioned you to think the way you think. And so now that you have this desire for something different that will require you to step outside of your comfort zone, or believe for bigger, or do something you never saw yourself doing, you have such a hard time with that because of your conditioning. And your environment isn't always just your physical location. Sometimes it's the people around you as well, okay? Because with me too, it's like when I left, I had to leave all of my friends and everybody and my culture and everything. And I had to learn how things were in America. And I realized for certain things, people saw things completely different. So it introduced me to a completely different perspective on the same things that I felt one way about my entire life. My point here is that if you feel like you want to do something, but in your mind you just feel like, no, it has to be done this way, or you just cannot see a way around it, sometimes shifting your environment is what you need to give you the courage. And that's not always physical. That doesn't always mean leave the country. I'm not saying you leave the country unless you want to, but sometimes it could mean getting around a different group of people where what you are believing for is the norm for them. The third thing is the uncertainty. You are afraid of uncertainty, and that is what is holding you back from taking a leap of faith and living a life of courage, of bravery, doing the things that you genuinely want to do. As somebody who has dealt with a lot of uncertainty in my life from many different drastic changes that I have gone through, whether it was my doing or somebody else's doing, like, with leaving where I grew up, what I can tell you is, if you are afraid of uncertainty, let me tell you what you need to do. All you need to do is make a note of where you are, make a note of where you want to be, look at the gap, figure out all of the things that you need to do and become to fill the gap, to bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and then start working on these things. So for example, when I started my podcast, right, before, I think now I have like over 10,000, 12,000 subscribers on YouTube. Hey, but the gap between 0 subscribers when you just start out and the 10,000 or 100,000 or however many subscribers you want, the gap in between those two places was just me figuring out how to edit, how to post, how to create thumbnails, what type of content to make, how to speak better and stop rambling or ramble less, how to figure out what to talk about, like all of the things that goes into becoming a creator. That's what you learn in the gap. So if you can just start learning to do these things now, start becoming that person now, start doing that thing now, it's going to close the gap. So the uncertainty that you're afraid of when you're like, well, I don't know what will happen. I don't know like what will happen if I make this decision. I don't know if I'll fail. I don't know if you will succeed at the thing, or it doesn't work out and you learn from it and you cross a what if off of your list. Now you're not sitting there thinking, well, what if I did this? Well, what if I did that? You did it, it didn't work. You learned from it, and now you have the capacity to pursue other things. If something is God's plan for your life, as long as you are consistent at it and you put in the work and you have the faith, you will get the ideal outcome. If it is not, you will learn from it and it will be a part of your journey. And in my opinion, so long as you learn from it, both of those outcomes are worth it, because you are a step higher than where you were before, when you were just sitting there thinking, well, maybe I should do this, well, maybe I should do that. I think it's a lot better to pursue something and get an answer than to not do it at all and to always have it in the back of your mind and then have all of that regret and resentment build up because you were too afraid to make a decision or to take action, right? That's just my opinion. And the last reason why you are afraid to do what you want to do, whatever that thing is because you are comfortable. Maybe you have a job right now and you want to get a new job. You want a raise, you want a better position, you want to transition into something different in your career, but you are comfortable. They're paying you just enough to not want more for yourself or to not do anything about wanting more for yourself. Or maybe you have a job and you believe you are called to do something else, but again, they're paying you enough to work on somebody else's dream and forget about your own. Or you are comfortable because you have the validation of other people. You have a nice job, you work at the nice company, you're doing very well for yourself. Your title sounds nice. The company you work for sounds nice. It gives you that extra boost of confidence. It makes you look like you have your life together. Like you know what you're doing, right? Like you're not a lost cause. Like you're not a failure in life. You have the stats. You have the bells and whistles that society expects of a successful person, right? So that for you is enough to completely forgo the type of life that you actually want to live, even though you hate it, even though you probably cry yourself to sleep, even though you genuinely do not like what you do, even though you feel like you are wasting your life, even though you have a lot of resentment towards yourself being built up because you are too afraid to do the things you genuinely want to do, and you have prioritized other people's opinions over your own happiness, you're comfortable, right? It's not hard enough. And I'm being very specific because I have been there. All of these things is why I was afraid to leave my first big girl job in Big Four Consulting, because it looked good on paper. It was nice. It was good, but for the life of me, I could not stand working in Big Four. I literally did not have a life because of how much I was working. I did not think that was the way of life for me. But it looked good on paper, but I was so afraid to leave. And after I left, I can tell you it is the best decision that I have ever made in my entire life. And the only reason I say that, there are many reasons why I think that's one of the best decisions I've made in my life. But the number one reason was because it gave me a different type of confidence in my life. Confidence that I could have only gotten from saying, you know what? I spent the last 6 years, I think, because sophomore year, I decided I wanted to work at that company, and I got the offer for the job before I even got into my senior year. And then I worked there for, I think, like 2.5 years, 3 years, something like that before I left. The confidence it gave me to say I did all of that for something that I wanted so bad, and I did it, and I didn't like it, and despite how good it looked to everybody else, I chose to put me first. The confidence that gives me, like, I wish that on everybody, right? And that's why let's get into the benefits now. Let's get into why you should be courageous going into 2025, right? The first reason is the confidence. Now, there are several ways you get confidence. You get confidence overall from doing the things that you say you will do, right? Like keeping your word, basically. But you get like a different level of confidence from doing certain things and stepping away from something that you once put your identity behind and that once made you look so good to others, but you chose to put yourself first. The confidence you get from that is like that decision created like a domino effect in my life, like a ripple effect in my life. That was the start of me putting myself first, and not in a selfish way, but in a I'm not going to be a people pleaser way. I am not going to put other people's opinions before my own happiness and my own peace. I am going to choose myself. A lot of the time, most of the times, the reason why a lot of people choose to stay in positions that they're not happy in is because they are afraid of making a decision and being judged and criticized by other people. And I was one of those people. And me leaving that job, like a lot of people just leave jobs and it's like whatever, whatever, whatever. But when you work so hard for a job that you thought that that's what you wanted to do at some point in time when you were younger, and you get there and you realize that's not it, it's like you go through like a whole identity crisis. Like, okay, well, if it's not this, well, who am I? Because I spent so much time, energy, and effort pursuing this, and now I don't want it. And a lot of people choose to stay there. A lot of people don't do anything about that. And I made the decision that I wasn't going to be one of those people, because by His grace, God made me meet people who actually did that. God made me meet people who actually stayed in a career for like 14, 15 plus years, that they hated, that they knew at my age where I was that that's not what they wanted to do. But they stayed there. They allowed themselves to be complacent and to delay their dreams and to delay the life that they genuinely wanted for over a decade, more than 2 decades for some of them. God allowed me to meet some of those people, and it terrified me, because I'm like, when you're in that position initially, you think that it will go away with time, or you hope that it will go away with time. You hope that, you know what, this is what I'm supposed to do to be successful in society. Let me just stay here. You hope that maybe it gets better. You hope that maybe you get promoted. You hope that maybe when you make more money, that feeling of wanting something else will go away. You hope that more money will solve the problem. But when God allowed me to meet people that in their late 40s felt like they were not where they wanted to be, and they have known this for like 15, 20 years, but they have been too afraid to leave, I literally saw my life flash before my eyes, and I was like, I am not going to be like you. I am not going to be one of those people. I'm like, you know what? If I fail, if the world comes crashing down, the world comes crashing down. But I cannot do this for another decade. Like, and the thing is, it's generational differences too. Like older people, like 40 plus or whatever age, they feel like, or at least in their times, I guess, like that's just what you did. You just stayed at a job for like 50 years until you retire, etc. They see our generation or my generation, and they think we are lazy because we will start a job that we don't want and then leave it after the first 20 minutes of working there. They see that as lazy. And I'm not saying every instance of it isn't laziness. Maybe some of it could be for some people, but it's like a generational difference. Like they feel like we should put in the work for like 20 years. 20 years of my life when I knew on day one that this was not what I wanted to do. Are you mad? Are you actually mad? Is life free? Is time free? Is time something I can get back? So why do you think that I should spend another decade plus in a position that I genuinely hate, that I know is not going to serve me? Like, be so for real, right? But I digress. The point is the level of confidence that you feel after you make a decision to say, you know what? This is not where I want to be, and I'm just going to go after the thing that I want, and I'm willing to put in the work so that it works out. But even if it doesn't, then I'm going to figure something else out. But I'm not going to stay in a position where I don't feel happy, where it's draining me, where I'm not fulfilled, where I know for a fact this is not what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. The amount of confidence you feel after making that type of decision, after having the courage to make that decision, nobody will be able to stop you. Nobody will be able to stop you in 2025. And that is why I'm making this episode, because I don't want you to be one of those people in like 15, 20, 30 years on your deathbed thinking that I wish I pursued that thing. I want you to do it now, okay? Which, by the way, side note, if you would like to start living a more fulfilling life, walking in your purpose, then I have a masterclass showing you how to do that. Just go to secludedthoughts.com/masterclass. Now, the second reason why I believe 2025 should be your year of courage, of making bold decisions, of being brave and doing the things you want to do, and not just in like work and your purpose, but like in your everyday life. Another benefit that I have found to doing this for the last few years is the authenticity. And what I mean by that is not living a life that doesn't feel like yours, or a life half lived, or full of regrets and resentment, even towards yourself. Because, like I said when I was talking about the job, I was afraid of making the decision because I was so concerned with other people's opinions and critiques on my life, right? But if you want to live a life that truly feels authentic, authentic meaning it's your life. It's you do the things that you love that make you feel fulfilled, not what other people say you should do, right? It feels like it's aligned with who you truly are and what you want. And then hopefully the desires of your heart come from God and they align with God, okay? That's what I mean. But I truly feel like I am living an authentic life because I adapted a mindset of exploration when it comes to my life. And that will be the next episode. I'll talk about that next week. But I truly feel like I am living a life that makes sense for me because all of the things that I thought I should do or I thought I should try, most of them I've tried it and I know what I like and I know what I don't like. And a lot of the things I don't like are the things that I thought I should like or the things that I thought I would like because I painted a premature picture of my personality and what I like before actually doing the things. For example, I told y'all in a previous episode that when I took my first solo trip, I thought I was the type of person who likes to vacation and not be adventurous. I thought I was the type of person who would want to go to like a relaxing, calm spa retreat type of vacation, like stay at the resort and just go to the spa, just relax, just do, all of these relaxing things. And I realized when I did that I only need maybe one day of that. And I actually want to explore and be more adventurous and try new things. But I assumed that I would not like to be adventurous. I assumed that I would not want to do all of these things because I was an introvert, right? I assumed that just because I'm an introvert, I would want to do the thing that's more calm and quiet and quaint. And I realized that I actually don't like that, or I don't need as much of it as I thought I would, right? But I learned that through exploration. I learned that through actually doing. I learned that by having the courage to take my first solo trip out of the country and learn about myself and what I liked and what I don't like. Now, do I think everybody should take a solo trip? Absolutely. Okay, absolutely. But even if you don't feel like doing that, it doesn't have to be in traveling. It could be in the activities that you think you would like because you think they look fun until you try it and it's like, I actually don't like that. Or you try it, or you try the things that you think you won't like and you realize you actually do like it, right? That is how you get a life of authenticity. You have to start actually exploring your life, right? You have to actually start doing things. You cannot just sit there and be like, I like this or I don't like this. And it's all a list of things that you have never done. And a lot of the reasons why we don't do these things is because we lack the courage, right? I wanted to take a solo trip for like maybe 5 years before I actually took one because I was convinced that me leaving the country by myself meant me coming back home in a casket, right? I just assumed that something bad would happen. I had all of these negative preconceived notions because of all of the negative stuff that I consumed around the things that I wanted to do. And that is why in 2025, I want you to be more courageous. I want you to take more brave actions. Do more things that scare you. A lot of times you realize that it's not even as scary as you think and you learn so much about yourself. How long are you going to keep things on your list unchecked? Like there are some things like solo dates, etc. Like some people hype it up. I hyped it up in my mind so much. Like, oh my God, I'm afraid to do this. What will people think? What if people look at me like I'm crazy? What if I go and people think that I was supposed to be on an actual date and then the person just didn't show up and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I went. And it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. It was actually very relaxing. I learned a lot about myself. I went home, I journaled, I learned so many things about myself. I learned the type of things that I don't like, the type of solo dates that I don't like, the type of solo dates that I do like, the type of activities I would want to do by myself versus what I don't want to do by myself. But I wouldn't have known that if I just waited for somebody to take me on a date. If I just waited to have other people in my life in order to live my life, if I waited to always have somebody to do things with me. Even traveling, I have traveled with different people several times, right? And it's very different traveling by yourself because sometimes the illusion of having company can make you enjoy something that you wouldn't otherwise enjoy by yourself. But you can only know that if you do both and you compare the two, right? Because I've been to relaxing vacations before and it was fine when somebody else was there with me, but when I was there by myself, I was like, I only need one day of this. I want to do other things, right? Sometimes the things you do, sometimes you do things and the only reason you enjoy it is because you went with a person. But if you had to go by yourself, you wouldn't like it. And you wouldn't like it not because you went by yourself, but you wouldn't like it because you don't actually like that thing. You probably just like that person's company, right? You learn all of these different things about yourself when you decide to live bravely and just do the things that you want to do. But until you do that, you just sit there with a long to-do list, just collecting cobwebs staring at you because all you do is make excuses as to why you shouldn't do the things that you really want to do, or at least try, right? 2024 was a very bold year for me. I made a lot of bold decisions. I did a lot of things that scared me. I didn't talk about everything on the podcast or share everything, but I did a lot of things that absolutely terrified me. And I'm still doing things that terrify me, that scare the crap out of me. But the confidence I have in doing these things and still being alive and not dying or not being like completely distraught like I thought I would, like that makes you a different person. The type of confidence you feel when you decide to have courage, when you decide to just do the things that you want to do, like make up your mind to just live boldly, that is what I want for you. That is what I want for you in 2025, okay? I want you to pause for a second and think about how many things are you potentially about to go into the new year with? Or if you're watching this after the new year, how many things did you come into the new year with, or you're potentially about to go into the new year with, still unchecked because you were too afraid to do it in 2024? You were too afraid to do certain things because of the story that you created around it, as if it was going to kill you. I've been there, okay? You were too afraid, and so now you are going into another year with the same things that you've been meaning to do. You don't think that affects you? You don't think that affects your confidence? Let me tell you, I'm talking about the level of confidence I feel living bravely and all of that. But let me tell you something. The confidence that I did not have before I started doing this was very crippling. It was very crippling because I'm somebody who gets so many ideas. I want to do all these things. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to just, I'm one of these people. But it used to be so crippling to have so many ideas and feel like I am not able to do a single one of them because I don't have the confidence to do it. And the reason I didn't have the confidence to do it is because when I wanted to do things, or when I said I wanted to do things, I didn't do them. Or when I said I want to really try this thing, I would just keep putting it off, right? It's very crippling to live your life that way. And the thing is, it's all mental. Like there's no actual physical wall. There's nothing, a lot of times, maybe not all the time, I don't know your situation, but a lot of times there's nothing physical actually blocking you or stopping you from some of these things. It's literally all in your head. It was literally all in my head, me thinking that I'm going to come home in a body bag if I took my first solo trip. Like a lot of the things holding you back are literally in your head. There is nothing physical stopping you saying you can't go. It's just every time the idea comes up, the conversation comes up, you have a list of reasons why you shouldn't. How about you make a list of reasons why you should? How about that? Okay, that's where I had to start. How about that? One of the things that has helped me to live a more courageous life, to have more courage and do things that I really want to do and be brave enough to step out in faith is instead of telling myself all of the reasons why I shouldn't, I ask myself, if God forbid I were to die today, would this be something that I would regret not doing? Or if God forbid I was on my deathbed, would this be something that I would think to myself and say, I wish I did this when I had the chance. I wish I knew what that felt like. I wish I took a chance here. As long as I feel like I would be resentful or I would have regret if I didn't do that thing or if I didn't at least try, then I am going to do it. And depending on what it is, sometimes I might plan for things. Sometimes I might just do it. I might just say, you know what, here it is. And then sometimes I can sit in that and feel uncomfortable. And sometimes I cannot sit in it just yet. So I will do it and then I will just run away from it. Like initially when I started podcasting, I was very afraid to release my first episode. So I would release it. I would publish my episode, publish my clips, and I would just put my phone down and I would not check it. And the next time I would come on my account is to post something else and I would not check it, right? Because in the beginning it was too uncomfortable to sit in. But now I understand the importance of consistency and reps and practicing. And even if I don't get the results that I want right away, I know that if the numbers aren't looking right, then internally it's looking right. Like I'm becoming who I'm supposed to be regardless of what the numbers look like. You see what I mean? So I've learned to change my perspective on it. At the end of the day, everything is about perspective. Most things are about perspective. Right now, you are not living a courageous life because you keep telling yourself all the reasons why you shouldn't do something instead of all the reasons why you should, instead of all the benefits of why you should versus how many ways you would die if you try this. Relax. Relax. Most times it's not even that deep. Most times it's not even that deep. There was not a single day where I felt unsafe on my solo trip. But before, for the years when I procrastinated doing it, if you would have asked me, I would have thought, well, somebody's going to snatch me at the airport or somebody will like break into my room and kidnap me or something like just the craziest things, like telling myself all the reasons why it will go wrong. I either tell myself the reasons why it will go right, but most times what I do more than likely is I ask myself, if it were my last day, would I regret not doing this thing? Would I feel like I failed myself by not pursuing this? If the answer is yes, I do it. I have to do it. Okay? If the answer was no, I probably wouldn't even think twice about it. It wouldn't be something that would be constantly on my mind. So a lot of the times I know the answer is already yes. Or especially if it's something that God has asked me to do, like I just have to get over myself and do it because I'm not going to be disobedient because God has checked me on that enough. Okay. Now, the third thing, which I alluded to earlier, the third benefit of being courageous, of going into 2025 with courage, right, is because of freedom. Let me explain what I mean. When you start living a more courageous life, i.e. doing the things that you genuinely want to do, one of the freedoms that allows you is the freedom from other people's opinions. Like I said earlier, like I alluded to earlier, I was afraid to do certain things because I was afraid of how other people would perceive it. When I started doing those things, I realized that's none of my business. I realized I don't live to please other people, okay? You should worry about pleasing yourself. I am going to worry about pleasing myself and pleasing God. Okay? I remember there was something that I really wanted to do. It had to do with my podcast. And I was so nervous because I was afraid of judgment. I was afraid of criticism. I was afraid of being pursued. I was afraid of all these things. And I remember talking to God about it. You know what the Holy Spirit told me? I have to put the scripture on the screen. It was the scripture in Galatians that said, do you serve people or do you serve God? Let me find it because I just have to read it because Paul is a savage. When I was concerned, because I was afraid of doing one of the things that God asked me to do, this is the scripture. This is the scripture that he led me to. It's Galatians 1:10, and this is the NIV version. It said, am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. When I tell y'all, sometimes the way God checks me, I just have to be quiet for at least 2 business days because that's literally what I was struggling with. And he was like, okay, so who's more important here? I'm sorry, did these people create you? Do they put food on your table? Who are you going to choose, me or them? So I chose God. But my point is, one of the luxuries that you get from living bravely, having courage, is the freedom of not worrying about other people's opinions. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't ever care about other people's opinions ever at all, never again, forevermore. But what I can say is that I don't let it prevent me from doing things like I used to, especially not for God, okay? Because god God checks me harder than I check y'all, okay? And I don't have the capacity for that all the time, okay? So I just do my best to be obedient, okay? Because I don't have, like, I'm sometimes I just, anyway. And then again, speaking of freedom, and this point is so fitting for where we are right now at the end of the year or at the beginning of 2025 when you're watching this. When you live courageously, when you live from a place of courage and bravery, you get to start every new year fresh. Fresh. Like it's a fresh slate. You get to start the year saying that I did everything that I said I would do in the last year. I did everything I said I would do in 2024. There's nothing that I said I was going to do this year that I didn't do it. Not everything worked out like I would have liked it to, but I did everything that I said I was going to do. And I think a lot of times we focus on outcomes and results, which is great because that's a good indicator of effort sometimes. But sometimes I think we should also pay attention to inputs as well, because sometimes some things didn't work out, but it's important that you actually tried because you needed to try it just to say that you did that thing, just to say that you were brave enough to do that thing, just to know what it's like to have the confidence to believe in yourself or to walk out on faith or to take that leap of faith, because sometimes that is like the one domino that causes everything else to fall into place or for you to get a better understanding of other things, right? So these are some of the benefits that you get from living a brave life. And honestly, like I said in the beginning, I think the hardest part is just taking the first step, because you have to push past all of the fears and the conditioning and all of the list of excuses and the 5-page dissertation that you created as to why you shouldn't do that thing. Like you have to crumble that up, burn it, throw it away, and create a 5-page dissertation on why you should do the thing, right? It's like all of the work around getting yourself around the mental roadblocks that you created or that other people conditioned you to believe. Like all of these things are the reasons why it's so hard to live a brave life, to be courageous, to do the things that you genuinely want to do. But it's 100% worth it in my opinion, okay? And this is not just with your purpose, this is with every aspect of your life. This is with pursuing hobbies, maybe a solo trip, maybe a solo date, maybe just trying something new, a different passion, a different hobby, getting new friends, putting yourself out there in some way, shape, or form. If there is one quote unquote resolution that you have in the new year, I don't really do resolutions. I have a word of the year, and this year the word was courage, or I think last year the word was courage. And ever since I started living more bravely, I never stopped. It's like the best thing ever. It's like one of the best decisions I've ever made and continue to make. So it's something that I would highly encourage you to do. One book I would recommend you check out that would really help with that is The Courage of Being Disliked. I would highly recommend you read that book going into the new year, because it will also go more in depth in how you can start getting over like the need for other people's validation or being afraid of other people criticizing you, etc., etc., etc. It's the courage to be disliked. And then lastly, if you feel like 2025 should be your year that you start walking in your purpose and start living a more authentic and fulfilling life where you have the luxury of freedom and the type of confidence that I just mentioned, then go to secludedthoughts.com/masterclass and I will show you how you can start doing that. So that is all I have for this episode, and I will talk to you next Sunday.